I was alone at home that evening, and the quietness felt both comforting and heavy at the same time. My name is Rebecca Miller, though most people just call me Becca. I live in a quiet suburban neighborhood just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, where the streets are lined with maples and oaks that shift beautifully with every season. That particular evening, the sky had turned dusky, a pale pink melting into a navy blue, and the crickets outside had begun their nightly symphony. My husband, Daniel, was away on a business trip in Chicago. He traveled often, and I had grown used to the rhythm of being alone at home during his trips. Still, the silence always had a way of making me feel both safe and restless. I had finished cleaning up dinner, just a simple meal of roasted chicken and vegetables, and curled up on the couch with a blanket. A candle flickered on the coffee table, and the television hummed faintly with a light-hearted romantic comedy I had chosen to keep myself company. Everything felt calm, until the unexpected happened. It was around 8:30 when I heard the doorbell ring. The sound startled me because I wasn't expecting anyone. My neighbors were friendly, but not the type to drop by unannounced. And Daniel wouldn't be back until Sunday. I hesitated for a moment, debating whether to answer. Curiosity eventually got the better of me, and I stood, adjusting the blanket around my shoulders before making my way to the door. When I opened it, standing there was someone I hadn't seen in years. It was Matthew Jacobs, my high school sweetheart. My breath caught in my throat. His face was older, more mature, but the eyes were the same stormy blue I remembered. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Memories of summer nights, school dances, and young love came rushing back all at once. "Hey, Becca," he said softly, his voice carrying a warmth that unsettled me. "I know this is unexpected, but do you mind if we talk?" I blinked, unsure if I was dreaming. I hadn't spoken to Matthew since I was 19. He had gone off to the military while I went to college, and our lives took very different turns. But there he was, standing on my porch like a ghost from the past. Against my better judgment, I nodded and stepped aside to let him in. He walked inside, glancing around as though the house carried pieces of me he had never known. I felt a knot of tension in my chest, wondering why he had come back now of all times. "I was just passing through town," he said, settling on the edge of the couch. "I thought I'd look you up. I wasn't sure you'd even remember me. How could I forget you?" I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. We sat in silence for a moment, the candlelight flickering between us. My heart raced in a way I hadn't felt in years. It was an attraction, not exactly, but the pull of familiarity, of what once was. He told me about his life after the military, how he had tried living in different states, how he struggled with finding purpose after leaving the service. I listened, nodding, my emotions tangled between compassion and unease. As the evening wore on, he asked about Daniel, about my marriage. I told him the truth, that Daniel was a good man, steady and hardworking, though sometimes distant because of his career. There was nothing scandalous about our marriage, but there were quiet cracks I rarely admitted to anyone. Matthew listened carefully, his eyes searching mine in a way that made me feel exposed. At one point, he reached across the couch and gently touched my hand. It was a simple gesture, but it sent a jolt through me. I pulled back slightly, clearing my throat. "Matthew, I don't think this is a good idea." "I'm sorry," he said quickly, his expression apologetic. "I didn't mean to cross a line. I guess I wanted to see if the girl I loved back then is still the same." His words hit me hard. I looked at him, and for a fleeting moment, I wondered what my life might have been like if things had turned out differently. If he hadn't left. If I hadn't married Daniel. But I quickly pushed those thoughts aside. I was not a teenager anymore. I was a wife, a woman who had made vows, a woman who believed in loyalty even when temptations from the past surfaced. I stood and walked toward the window, needing distance. Outside, the streetlights glowed softly, and the world looked so ordinary compared to the storm of emotions swirling inside me. "Matthew, you can't just show up like this," I said, turning back to him. "It's been years. My life is different now." He nodded, his face heavy with regret. "I know. I don't know why I thought maybe there was still something between us." There was silence again, thick and suffocating. Finally, I told him it was late, that he should go. He hesitated but eventually stood. Before leaving, he looked at me one last time. "You're still the same Becca to me. I'll never forget that." And just like that, he was gone, leaving me standing in my quiet living room, my heart pounding. I locked the door and leaned against it, letting out a shaky breath. The unexpected visit had stirred feelings I didn't want to admit existed. I loved my husband, but the past had a way of pulling at threads you thought were long sewn shut. When Daniel returned 2 days later, I didn't tell him about Matthew. Not because I wanted to keep secrets, but because I knew nothing truly happened. And yet, the encounter forced me to reflect deeply on my marriage, my choices, and the fragility of the boundaries we live by. For the next several weeks, I found myself replaying that night in my mind, not out of desire, but out of caution. It was a reminder that temptation doesn't always come in obvious forms. Sometimes, it wears the face of someone you once loved. But love, real love, is about choosing the present, the promises made, and the life built together, over the ghosts of what might have been. And so, I tucked Matthew back into the past where he belonged. My heart was steady again, my commitment to Daniel even stronger. But I would never forget that night when I was alone at home, and an unexpected visitor arrived. It didn't destroy me, it reminded me who I wanted to be.